Hello everybody, today the answer to one of the most commonly asked questions of 2024. James, what happened to your KTM and all this motorcycle content that we have been promised? Just to get everybody up to speed, a long time ago, before I even had a car license, I had a motorcycle license. I then, for a good few years, was as much a motorcyclist as I was a car driver, but then, owing to life doing what it does, I kind of stopped after a while, but when the opportunity arose, I would keep riding, and I managed to do a few nice exciting things on bikes. I've done a few track days, I've driven around Spa, albeit on a parade lap, and I've done a couple of jaunts over long distances, up to Scotland, across Europe, and I feel like I am a competent, a basic level motorcyclist, but there came a point where I got off a bike one day and then never got back on. Cars became my focus. Didn't really have much money for stuff like bikes, and then my access to them became a little bit trickier, and I just stopped. But it was always something that nagged at me, partly because in my garage was my grandfather's old Triton, and for 30 years it had been effectively an ornament, and I was determined to get it working again. So when I finally could afford it, I had the bike restored and got to ride it. It is an ornament no more. And I want to say a big thanks to everybody who's been watching all of this stuff, because you were really quite instrumental in helping me get back on two wheels and get back out there into the world of biking. Now, the thing about the Triton, it's a proper old school bike. Somehow I never noticed this in the 30 years of looking at it, but not only does it not have indicators, it doesn't even have mirrors. So it's a kind of terrifying thing to drive in modern traffic. You've no idea if there's some knob behind you desperate to get past who's maybe about to do something really, really silly. And so I thought, you know what? I'm really loving the whole concept of getting back on a bike, but I would like to have something a little bit more modern to go alongside it, that I can ride in different conditions, and then I can just, hop on, press a button, and it will go. The Triton doesn't even have a key, so securing it is a pain in the backside. I thought for a while about what it was that I wanted to buy. Always had in my head the idea of getting a Ducati. I'd never ridden a Ducati in my life. I thought, let's get something a little bit interesting, a little bit different. I thought about MV Agustas, all the bikes that from my childhood I kind of really, really wanted. But then I started thinking, you know what, James, you haven't ridden in a long old time. It had been, I don't think 10 years, but it had been probably at least 6 or 7 years, I think, since I'd ridden a bike of any description. I thought, actually, modern bikes, they got a lot of safety features and things that bikes just didn't have when I was last riding. Maybe getting a new bike or newish bike would be a good idea, because although I like to think that I'm sensible, of course, and there's always the possibility that we overestimate our abilities, the Dunning-Kruger effect, I think it is. And I was very wary of this. Of course, the fact that I'm now self-employed also made a big difference, because if I did fall off said bike and hurt myself, that was going to be a really, really big problem. Now, I did a lot of research, rode a lot of bikes, and really enjoyed getting back into the world. It's been absolutely brilliant, and made a few friends too in the biking YouTube world. Now, long story short, I eventually settled on buying a KTM. And I did go, I will admit, a little bit overboard. I bought a KTM SuperDuke R Evo 1290, a beast of a bike. And when I announced that I bought that, there were a lot of people that thought I'd gone too far, and there were a lot of people that thought that I was probably going to kill myself on that bike, which I always thought was, a little bit insensitive and a little bit odd, because I have in one of these boxes down here the helmet my grandfather was wearing when he was killed on his motorbike. So I'm very, very aware of the consequences of what can happen in a motorbike accident. In case you're wondering, that one wasn't his fault. He got T-boned at a junction by a daft pensioner who decided they could drive across a dual carriageway without looking. I bought the bike because I like the engine, I like the idea of a big twin. Fours don't really do all that much for me. I like the idea of torque as opposed to power, and it had lots and lots of torque, which meant you could ride it briskly without having to rev it out, and try too hard and all that. It also was new and came with a 4-year warranty if I took finance out. So knowing that KTM did have a bit of a reputation, I thought that's probably a good idea. And you know what, of all the bikes I rode, it really impressed me. I bought the top of the line one because the KTMs are a bit tall and I got short, stumpy little legs, and it could drop itself down. It just spoke to me. I really liked it, and I loved the dealer as well, JayEmm over in Braintree. So I bought it, I got it, and then the first week I went to go and use it, it gave me an error message. Suspension failure. Great, yay, brilliant. A new bike, already got a problem. And for whatever reason, JayEmm didn't want to come and get it and sort it. So I had to ride it over. Now I was quite busy, I had stuff to do, so I tried to get it over, and I managed to get it over in really quite horrendous conditions. It was November, it was cold, it was icy, it was not fun. Not fun at all. I got the bike over, and eventually they did fix it. And I believe there was actually a hardware issue with the bike. Came back, got it, and it being by this point, I think December, I didn't ride it. It stayed there. Now, this same year, I also got a CB500 from Honda as a press bike. Did a sort of first test press review film, which I thought went quite well. People quite enjoyed it, a lot of positive feedback. And I thought, right, this is good. I'm going to go into 2024 looking to do more bike stuff. At the same time, Norton also got in contact with me, their guy there, saying, oh, James, I've been following your car stuff for a while, didn't know you were a biker, and didn't know that you had, well, half of a Norton. Do you want to come down to the factory? I went down to the factory, spoke to them, talked to them, and they said, yeah, let's do something next year. So next year rolled around, I went to go and use the KTM, and it gave me another suspension failure message. So I phoned KTM and said, look, this is ridiculous. You know, it's come in once before for this issue, and now I haven't even gone anywhere on it, and it's done it again. And they said, oh, it must be the battery. Well, the thing started just fine. It wasn't like it went brub, 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 and then fired into life, and I'd expect that sort of thing to happen. And they said, oh, it will eventually clear itself. Keep starting and stopping it, and it will clear itself. I tried that. It didn't clear itself. So I said, look, this thing's got another error. It's the same error message as before. You know, suspension ECU failure or something along those lines. Take it back. There's twice I've gone to ride the damn thing, and it's given me an error message. And I don't know the consequences of that error message. I don't know how many systems on that bike are not working. And it's a 180 horsepower missile of a bike. You know, I know it's capable of a lot, and I know that I'm not, and I want to know that all the systems and things on there are going to work. Should I, hopefully not need them, but if I do, then I want them to be there and be working. And I think because I said, look, I'm just going to reject it, I'm just going to return it, you know, they actually then, this time round, sent somebody in a van to come and get it. So it's cool, they're fine, they took it away and they said, look, it's just a software issue, basically, you know, you might have just started it too quickly. Okay, all right, fine. And look, I'm used to dealing with Italian cars and British cars, but even those seemed a bit more reliable than this KTM. So it was already starting to irk me. Norton invited me to go over to the Goodwood Festival of Speed, and they actually offered me the opportunity to ride a bike up the hill. That's very exciting. This is amazing. Now, I was not confident enough in my riding ability at that point in time to ride a bike up the hill at the Festival of Speed and not look like an absolute idiot. So I said, could I bring somebody else? And we got Simon, the lovely chap who restored my grandfather's motorbike, to ride the bike up the hill, and I was going to film everything around it. Now, Goodwood are really, really difficult, and basically Goodwood said, if we catch you filming the ride up the hill, you will be ejected from the premises and never let back here again, or words to that effect. Okay, cool. But if you want the footage of the bike going up the hill, it's going to cost a fortune. It's like £1,500 or something like that for the first 60 seconds. Oh, and by the way, if you don't tell us before the event that you want the footage, it's going to be even more money. And all they're doing is basically sending you a clip of the YouTube feed that everybody gets. It's ridiculous the amount they're charging. But we said, okay, we're going to want this footage of this Norton going up the hill, and I filmed everything around it except the run up the hill. And it turns out that the team at the Festival of Speed didn't film it. The bike went up the hill. Actually, a few Nortons went up the hill together. And I was both listening and watching at the time, and it was as if they weren't there. Now, this is not Norton's fault. This is on Goodwood. I couldn't believe it. You know, Norton are there. Norton have paid a lot of money to be there. You pay to go up the hill now. You don't get asked, you pay. And we'd also said we want the footage of it in advance, as they requested, and there was none. And because I wasn't allowed to film it, there wasn't any footage of myself either. I got a couple of action cam shots, which is not ideal. You know, I can't make a whole video out of that, of Simon going up the hill on the bike, and that's it. So that was frustrating. Norton, lovely people that were, by way of apology, said, you know what, we're going to lend you like a Commando anyway, which I was very excited about, but also we're going to lend you the V4, which is just the sexiest bike ever. It's beautiful, and it's like 40-something thousand pounds, so it's a really expensive bike, but beautifully handmade, lots of nice componentry. It's work of art, right? The Commando arrived. I rode it a couple of times. And I was going to wait, because I had a few things going on. I was going to wait to get it done. And there'd been a bit of a balls up with the delivery. And basically, we'd agreed an extension because I'd kind of missed the filming day that I had set aside for it. So we agreed an extension to give me more time to film. And then the guy turns up at my doorstep to take the bike away about 4 or 5 days before it should have been taken away. So he took the bike away. I phoned Norton and said, well, I thought we'd agreed an extension here. And they went, yeah, we had. Turns out that the delivery company hadn't paid attention, and they basically took the bike early. But I was so frustrated with the lack of organisation and communication. I was just like, no, just take it. Just, if you can't organise basic stuff, like when it's dropped off and picked up, just take it. Like, this is ridiculous. The V4 wound up getting dropped in the factory, I think, twice and damaged. So I never got that. The KTM I tried to use again, and it gave me a suspension fault again. I managed to fix it this time, or get it sorted, or take it in. Anyway, but it started frustrating me by this point in time. Like, every time I wanted to use the damn thing, it gave me an error message. And eventually it got sorted, and then it was okay. But I just lost the enthusiasm, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I also had something coming up pretty big that meant I needed to free up a little bit of my monthly commitments. Now, the bike I'd had on finance, purely for the reason that if I took the finance out, they gave me double the warranty. And the plan was just to pay the finance off for a little bit. And I could have done that. But I just sat there thinking, you know, not only have I not really ridden this bike, I knew I was never going to have masses of time to ride. I've never once opened the garage to just look at it. And I realised I'd made a terrible error in that I bought the bike that was technically the best, the most superior, did all the numbers and everything, and seemed to be, like, logically the best option. Whereas what I should have done is bought the 20-year-old Ducati that would have been no doubt horrible to ride, certainly by comparison, but that I would have wanted to go and see every single day. The bike that I would have just wheeled out just so I could park it next to one of the cars and go, my life isn't that fantastic. You know, Italian bikes, like Italian cars, they're a work of art, and you just admire it. You just want it so much. And so I thought, yeah, the KTM doesn't really do anything for me. So I sold it with something like 159 miles on the clock. I lost £4,000 on that bike. I lost more on that bike than on a lot of the cars that I've had. And yeah, I regret buying that bike. But I don't regret buying that bike for many of the reasons that people thought that I would, that it's too fast, I can't control it, it'll get out of hand. Like, look, the bike only goes as quick as you tell it to, right? It's the same as cars. Like, I you know, spend my life driving very, very potent cars, and you just have to give the machinery respect. Now, the fact is, on a bike, you have to give it even more respect, and the consequences can be even more dire if something goes wrong, which is why you've got to be wary of the machine. But the machine won't do what you haven't told it to. Yeah, I did ask for a few press bikes and things through the year, but a lot of manufacturers were changing their range, things were going on, either might up being away, and it just never happened. Before I knew it, I blinked, 2024 was gone, and so was the KTM. I would like to do more motorbike content this year. I really, really would like to. I'm determined to get back onto two wheels once again. A friend of mine is looking at buying a bike. I've cleared space in the garage for it. And of course, when all that happens, I'll make videos about it. And I feel really bad that I sort of started something and then kind of stopped very, very abruptly. But the fact is, I only want to do this stuff if I can do it right, and I can do it to the standard that I would like to do it. And yeah, that's it really. And that is what happened to the KTM. Thanks for watching, everybody. Sorry about that. I know a lot of you were disappointed, but I'll keep trying. I promise. Cheers.